Hi, today we're going to be learning how to use our VEX controller, it looks like this, to control the brain screen and to be able to change objects on there. To do that, you need to connect your VEX controller with a cable from the VEX controller to one of the ports on the brain. So once you have that done, you're ready to rock and roll. Before we get started, let's make sure that we save our file. So I've already saved mine, but I saved it as my name and then moving with controller. That's what you want to name yours as. I added a video on mine because I want to know this is the video version, but you don't need that. So your first name and then moving with controller is the name of it. All right, so now we're all saved and we're ready to go. Before we can use a controller, we have to add it as a device for this program. So we're going to come over here to our devices menu, click on this. It's the second one from the left or the third one from the right. We're going to do add a device, and we're just going to click on controller and then click done. Now we have the controller added, and you can see there's some things that have changed. For example, we can create a rumble on our remote control now. And because we have the controller added, we have this new command. Also down here in the sensing menus, we now have ways to use the controller to be able to do things in our program. So we can use the buttons. This one, the controller one, these are the buttons pressed. So we can use someone pressing the button to do something in our program. And we can also use the position of the joysticks in our program as well. To remember what's what on the controller, if I come over here and click on the controller and devices menu, it shows me what all the names of them are. So if I want to use this button here, it's going to be the L1 button. So I would click down here and I would see, okay, that's the L1 button. Now all the names are here, L1, L2, R1, R2. The joysticks, these circles are the two joysticks. The right joystick, left and right on the right joystick, is position 1. So it'll read off 1, and then up and down is 2. Left and right on the left joystick is 4, up and down the left joystick is 3. And then this is the up, left, right, down buttons. And then of course these are the X, Y, A, B buttons. So those are all on here as well. These are for the joystick, position 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you choose position 1, it's going to read the left, right, how much left, right the joystick is doing. Okay, let's just get into it and see what happens. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle. So I'm just going to grab a circle, throw it on here. Let's give it the initial value of 240, 120, although we're going to change that in a second, and maybe make the radius up to 20, a little bit bigger. Now I'm going to want to draw this circle over and over and over again. So I'm going to come down here and grab a forever loop, drop it around it, and I want to be able to control the position of this circle by using the remote control. So I'm going to come down here, and the easiest way to do it is I'm just going to grab this controller 1 button or thing and drop it right in there. So I'm going to use the 1 position, left and right on the right joystick, to control the left and right motion. So the number 1 is the left and right, so I put it in the X position so it controls left and right. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab controller 1 position, and put it in the Y. And I'm actually going to, I could use number 2 so that this one controls, let's just do that actually. I'm going to use position number 2. So how far up or down is going to determine the up down of this motion. And then at 20 is here. All right, awesome. So that's going to redraw a circle. Let me set the fill so we can see the circle a little easier. We're going to put the fill color to red. And I'm dropping that outside the forever loop so we can see what's going on. I'm going to download this and run it and just see what happens. So notice our circle's in the top left-hand corner. That's because it starts out at 0, 0. Well, that's because our controller's at 0, 0. When I move the left joystick to the right, it moves to the right. But notice it only goes to 100, or it only goes a little bit across the screen. When I move the joystick up, the circle moves down. Because remember, up is a positive number, and positive Y's go down on the screen. So it's backwards. We need to figure out how to make that work. When I move it down, it moves off the screen up, and when I move it to the left, it moves off the screen to the left. Now that's not very satisfying to be able to only draw, like backwardsy draw on this corner of the screen. So let's figure out a way that we can make this stretch across the screen. Okay, so first things first, controller position. What values do we get when we create a controller position? So to understand, to see the values we're going to get, I'm going to remove this circle, and I'm going to come up here and do something a little bit strange. So I'm going to say print vex code. I'm going to remove this fill, put this fill color over here as well. Put these off to the side, we'll use them later. And what this does is it prints it, but we're going to print this on what's called the console instead of the brain. And I'm going to click on this arrow here and say set cursor to new row. And inside here, I'm going to come over here and grab controller 1. Actually, let me leave that one in there. Let me grab a new one from over here. I'm going to put controller 1 position right in there. Now, where's the console? Well, the console is over here on the right-hand side. So there are 3 things that we know about now. There's the help menu, which is super nice and useful. There is this menu that's next. This is the actual console. We'll be using this in a second. This is a device one for adding more devices. And then this final one shows you the code, the typed code. So we want the second one or third one from the left, second one from the right, the print console open right now. And when we choose console, this is where it's going to print. So it's going to print whatever the value is, and then go down to the next row and do it over again. Well, I was going to do it over again, let's do it just once this time. So I need to throw a forever loop in here. And this is going to go through this forever loop really, really, really fast. So I'm going to slow it down quite a bit by throwing a wait block in there. Because there's no reason we don't need to go through it quite so fast. So what this does is this. So I'm going to download this, and I'm going to run it. Instead of looking at my brain, I'm going to watch my console. Notice how it's just all zeros. What that tells me is that controller position 1 is set to 0 right now. So if I move the controller a tiny bit to the left, you see it starts giving you negative values. And I'm moving it more and more to the left, the value gets bigger. If I go back to the center, it goes back to 0. Back to 0 in the center now. If I go all the way to the left, we get to 100. So the value from the left, from the controller, goes from 0 to negative 100 when you go to the left. Now let's go to the right. Instead of being negative, it is now positive. And if I go all the way over, it makes it to 100. All right, so that's the maximum value. That's why when we draw with this, our circle is only going 100 pixels to the side. We want it to go the full 480, so let's try and figure that, how to fix that out. And then if I go up, notice how nothing changes, because up is position 2, not position 1. All right, so that's all good so far. We now know what values we're looking to make work. So I'm going to throw this I'm going to put this forever loop to the side and put my circle back in my when started. And now I want this to go from 0 to 480, but it only goes, right now this goes from 0 to 100. So I need to multiply this. So if I'm going to go from 0 to 480 instead, I need to multiply each of these by 4.8. So let's come over here and grab a math block. And there's an operators block. 0, I'm going to put this one in here. And then I'm going to do this one times 4.8. So what this does is, let's say that we're not moving the controller, and the controller's value is at the 0 position, right in the middle. 0 times 4.8 is still just 0. Perfect. If I push it to the right, all the way to 100, this number is going to end up being 100 here, 100% on the remote control, times 4.8, that pushes us out to 480. So that'll get us all the way to the right-hand side of the screen. So basically, we just made it move it 4.8 times farther to the side every time. So if we move the controller halfway to the right, it puts 50% here, and 50 times 4.8 is 240, halfway across the screen. Awesome, so that one's done. We need to do a similar thing here, but instead of going to 480, this one needs to go all the way down to 240. So if I come down here and I grab a math block and I say, okay, Let's put this one in. I want the controller to move from 0. I want it to move times 2.4. That way when the controller's at 0, 0 times 2.4 is still 0, so that works. And then when it's all the way to the right, all the way to the, up, it's going to be 100% here, which is going to be 100 times 2.4 is 240. So this should work. Let's download and see what happens. Run. So again, we have a thing in the circle. I'm going to do the right hand, I'm going to go just to the right some. Okay, awesome. Look how well that's working. And all the way to the right, yep, got me to the edge of the screen. So now I can go left and right really easily. Now let's try to go up and down. So I'm going to go push up, which should move me down. Yep, and I go all the way down. Now I can go around here and mess around all over the screen drawing. It's kind of weird because whenever I let go of the remote control, instead of staying where it is, it snaps back to 0 because that's what I told it to do. Just go wherever the remote control is. All right, so now the only problem with this is that when I try to go left, it goes off the screen. I don't want it to go off the screen. I want it to go like to the left. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up so that when it's at 0, it's going to be in the middle of the screen. So this is where things get a little bit complicated. Right now it's set up so that it's 4.8 times all the way across the thing. I want 0 to start at 240. So to do that, I have to add some numbers to it. So I take controller position 1, I multiply it by my factor, and then I add 240 to it. So I'm going to take this and drop it back in there. So let's say if I put a 0 in, I'm not touching the controller, it does 0 times 4.8. That gives me 0 plus 240. So when the controller is set to 0, my final value is 240, the center of the screen. The same thing over here. I want to grab this one out, and I want to add a plus in here, and I'm going to say, okay, this, and I'm going to add 120 to it. So when the controller is set to 0, sitting in the middle of the controller, it's going to multiply by 2.4. 0 times 2.4 is 0, plus 120 is 120. So whenever the controller is at 0, it's going to be at 120 in the Y. Okay, so actually I'm going to close this console real quick. Let me get this out of the way so we can see what's going on. And I'm going to download this and run it. Hopefully now our circle will start in the middle. Good. So again, when this is set to 0, 0 times this is 0, plus 240 is 240. Now, if I move to the right, what should happen? Oh, awesome. The only problem is I'm moving off the screen. But that works. I go left, it goes left. So this feels better to me. Like this is more of what I wanted, left and left. Let's try up. So up moves me down. We got to still fix that and off the screen. And then it moves down, moves you up. But it's moving me too far. So about halfway I meet the screen. So because I moved it in the middle, I only want to go to the right 120. So instead of 480 here, sorry, I should say I'm only wanting to move to the right for 240. So I'm going to actually do a 2.4 here. I want to multiply by a smaller number. Let's see what that does for us. Because at 100% controller 1, we want this thing to be over at 480. So 100 times 2.4 is 240, plus 240 is 480. So this is the numbers we want. So this must need to be half as well. So 1.2. So when the controller is set to 100%, 100 times 120, or 1.2 is 120, plus 120 is 240. And that should give us to where we want to be. All right, let's download this and run it and see if we have something that looks decent. Run, and now it should go to the edge, but no more. So right to the edge, but no further. Awesome. And then right to the edge, but no further. Yes. And then yes and yes. The only problem right now is that when I go up, the ball moves down. So I need to change the value of these. So whenever they're negative, I want them to be positive, and whenever they're positive, I want them to be negative. The way to do that, I'm going to pull this block out. So to pull it out, make sure you're grabbing it on the lowest level, which is this plus here. If you grab it here, it's just going to pull the times out and leave the plus behind. So to grab the whole thing out, I'm going to grab the lowest level and pull it out. Now I need a multiplication block for this one. Boom. I'm going to snap this back into the first slot. To snap in, you've got to grab that lowest part here, but then you've got to put the left-hand side of it into that little hole. Boom. And then it's inside that one. You can see that you've done it right because it'll highlight just around that, the circle you're trying to drop it into. And we're going to now multiply this by -1. What this part does is if this is set to negative, say 100 times 1.2 is -120, and that sets it to 0, and then it multiplies it by a -1. Well, that was a bad example. Let's say this was set to 50% or -50. That would give us -60 here, plus 120 would give us 60, but we actually want that to give us a negative number, so we're going to put a -1 here. It kind of reverses. So whenever this is negative, it turns positive. Whenever it's positive, it turns negative. That should flip them over and go the different directions. So download and run this one. And uh-oh, I broke something. Okay, sorry about that. Actually put the times in the wrong place. Let's go back and fix that. So I'm going to pull the whole thing out. And I didn't want the multiply by -1 to happen after the addition. I wanted it to happen inside here. So I'm going to pull this one out, and I'm going to pull this one out. So I want to actually just take the controller position times -1. That'll flip the controller position from positive to negative. And I want to do that before I do anything else. So I'm going to put the controller in here, multiply by -1. So if this is positive, it goes negative. If this is negative, it goes positive, which will just reverse the direction of it. Okay, and then I'm going to take this one and put it back into times 1.2. That expands the size of my range to go off the screen or to the edge of the screen. And then I'm going to add the 120, and that's going to center me in the middle of the screen to start with. And then I'm going to push this back all up in here. All right, so this should work now. Sorry about that. It's that whole order of operations. Oh, good, we're back in the middle of the screen. So I'm going to push the controller to the left. It works. Controller to the right. It works. Controller down. Oh, it's down now. And controller up. It's up. And now I can go all over the screen. The only thing weird is that whenever, like I said, when I let go, it doesn't stay where it is. It rushes back to the center. But you can figure out how to work with that. Hey, good job. That is how to add stuff in. There was a lot of mathematics in there, so hopefully you were able to, stick with that and enjoy that. We'll see you next time.